Now let me try, if I can possibly, to put into some sort of words what this experience is. This experience, which so far as they are concerned, is the objective of human life. To get this is to understand the meaning of human nature and destiny. Only because it's a transformation of consciousness, because it's something you feel rather than something you think, it is for this reason difficult to put into words. But it is as if you saw quite suddenly, and indeed this experience could have happened to you. It can come without warning to anybody, and so what I'm going to be saying may strike a familiar ring in some ears. But it is as if quite suddenly you became totally convinced that the way everything is in this universe and at this moment is absolutely right. And that's almost putting it too weakly. I'm saying it is suddenly feeling that everything is right the way it is now, however appalling, however terrible. And you know it beyond a shadow of doubt. There are two other aspects to this experience as well. And although you feel them all together, we have to talk about them separately. While the first aspect is feeling that everything just as it is so right that you could say of it, this is why I'm alive. This is what life's all about. The second is that everything you see and feel seems to come to life in an extraordinary way. You feel the world as you've seen it before, was seen almost in a dream. But it is as if just the ordinary things that were confronting you suddenly went, yeah, and came alive. And the third aspect of it is that you no longer feel yourself and what you are experiencing to be separated. You know, perhaps one of the good ways of showing you what this means is through the application of Zen to Japanese fencing. Now, if you go to study with a Japanese fencing master, you will not at first be given a sword and be told how to use it. You'll be made a kind of janitor around the house. You have to do all the little chores, like sweeping the floors, putting away the bedding, washing up the dishes, and so on and so forth. And while you are doing that, the master will get hold of a practice sword. This, you see, is made of bamboo. It's made of about 6 slips of bamboo, loosely tied together, so that if you get hit with it, although it may give you a pretty hard crack, at least you don't get killed. And while the poor boy, who's the apprentice, is doing the household duties, the teacher stalks around with one of these things and unawares gives him a bang on the head. And the boy is expected to defend himself by any means at his disposal. And everywhere, always at unknown moments, the teacher sneaks up on him and bangs him on the head. So after a while, the poor fellow is going around, looking this way and looking that, expecting at any moment the teacher to hit him. And he begins in his mind to plan how he can be ready to meet the teacher's assault. And as he goes along a passage, he's expecting the teacher to come right round the corner at the end, and instead of that, just as he's all ready to defend himself, doing, he gets hit on the head from behind. Now, when this has been going on for a little time, there are only two possibilities. The apprentice gets a nervous breakdown and quits. Or he learns. And what does he learn? He learns that the teacher will always outwit him, that he can never be prepared for an unexpected attack. And so he gives up trying to control the situation. He gives up trying to prepare. And at that moment, the teacher gives him the practice sword and says, now you can begin to learn fencing. The Zen way of teaching teaches one to see that you cannot be in complete control of your whole life situation. You cannot, in other words, fundamentally possess yourself. And so they set you the problem of trying to find out who you are. Who is the knower behind all your experience? Who is the ego, the I? When the moment of letting go comes, when we see that every moment of life is now it. In other words, the object of life is no longer seen as something to grasp after in the future. Every moment is it now. The experience at the basis of Zen can be demonstrated by ordinary everyday life. That's why in Zen teaching, those old masters in China didn't like to answer questions about philosophy with wordy explanations. They had quite a different way of going about it. I remember one case where a Confucian scholar came to a teacher and said, "Please explain to me your secret teaching." And the teacher replied, "Well, there's a saying in your own master Confucius which very well puts it. When Confucius said, 'My disciples, do you think I am holding anything back from you? Indeed, I am holding nothing back.'" And that was all he said. And so the Confucian scholar was a bit perturbed and said, "Well, what do you mean?" And the Zen teacher said, "Well, forget it. I don't want to talk about it anymore." Well, a few days later, they were walking together in the mountains, and they happened to pass a bush of wild laurel. And the Zen teacher turned to the Confucian scholar and said, "Do you smell it?" The scholar said, "Yes." "You see," said the teacher, "I'm keeping nothing back from you." And it said that at that moment, the scholar was awakened. This is the characteristic approach of Zen, to answer questions about abstract, vast matters of philosophy with absolutely concrete, momentary events. Because it is these concrete, momentary events that are the answer. If they are experienced with a mind that is no longer clinging to life and clinging to itself, as I said, the trivial, the ordinary, the momentary suddenly comes zoop to life. And this, you see, this thing that we are living now is the answer. You and this whole world are one. And that in this experience of oneness and the sudden coming alive of everything, and the profound rightness, that's the only word I can use, the profound rightness of each moment, of this moment, however far it may seem to be short of one's ideals of perfection. This is it. And you say, having seen this, I can die content. This is what it was all about.